All right, welcome to episode 17 of DAO Talk. This is your one-stop shop for everything DAOs. I'm Tommy.
And I'm Frishan.
And we have a special guest with us today. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. My name's Kyler. I'm the author of Around the Blockchain and the director of operations for the DAO Research Collective.
We've talked a lot about DAO Research Collective in the past couple of weeks, especially with like the Stanford workshop going on. So we're excited to have you on. Let's jump into it. So, Frishan, let's get your thoughts first on this since you were at MCon. This is a tweet from Julie Tech, and it went pretty viral last week. It's kind of a summary of MCon, and one of the phrases she keeps coming back to, or people are coming back to at MCon, is DAOs are in their teenage phase. And there's a really interesting thread that Frishan will cover as we go through this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is true. I think DAOs exist. I think there's a diverse set of DAOs that now exist that are trying many experiments in many different fields at once. And I think there's sort of a list of problems that need to be solved before DAOs are, competitive with like their off-chain equivalents, which would be like a corporation or a nonprofit. Like today, basically, DAOs are kind of like blockchains in general, where for most use cases, for many use cases, a DAO is like inferior to a corporation or a nonprofit, but it's better for like very, very specific like use cases. Like, let's say you have like a huge treasury on chain, like a company is not going to do as good of a job managing that as a DAO. So it's sort of like, in most cases, DAOs are still, just very new and very inefficient in comparison to like these other structures that we've developed that we've sort of like improved over 100 plus years, right? And so basically there's like improvements that need to be made in basically like every possible area to kind of like get DAOs to the point where they're like the default way of doing stuff on the internet, of coordinating trust, etc. I think that's what Julie is talking about here. And like, yeah, the list of those things is so long, but we have teams working on all of them. So, I'll just throw a couple of examples out there. One is like just literally blockchain UX, right? Like, right now, the barrier to like safely going on chain and using Ethereum is extremely high. Like, you need to learn how to self-custody assets safely, which is like a much higher barrier than like the vast majority of humans on this planet will ever overcome. Right. So that's like not even DAO specific, but it's like absolutely holding DAOs back. Right. Another is like, Kyler's here, right? It's like, how do you sort of like, provide equity prior to tokens being liquid? So like super, super specific example, but like, how do you give contributors upside in a future token before the token exists? Like, I give that one because Kyler's here, but also, and he works on that problem, but also because like it's incredibly specific, but absolutely needs to be solved. And it's just an example of one of like literally hundreds of problems that we need to sort of like work on to kind of get past this teenage phase. But I am very confident that we will get there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm inclined to agree entirely. DAOs, if corporations are the proverbial parents in this situation, the question is begged, as a child, does the DAO have to emulate what the corporation does? And at least at the DAO Research Collective, we definitely don't believe that. Like, it's not the job of a DAO governance structure to try and emulate what a corporate governance structure is. But at the same time, DAOs have this massive identity crisis, and it's for a couple of reasons. One is they're so new and shiny that everybody wants to sprinkle a little bit of DAO sauce on everything they're doing, because it's the cool and fashionable thing to do. But DAOs, they're going to serve a specific purpose, and they're not going to be the end-all, fix-all that some people seem to think that they're going to be. But for the purposes that they're going to serve, I think that right now the foundation is really, really strong, like a bright teenager. But they need some guidance. They need to be directed into the best way to come to fruition as adults. And so that's just kind of the place that we're at, right? We're all learning this together. And, we need to get our college education and whatever it might be that takes DAOs to the next level. But I think it's a brilliant way to describe the state that DAOs are in.
Yeah, kind of going off that, that's a good, little segue into this next tweet, which is from Frisian, actually, this week, which went pretty viral. We can talk about that, Frisian. This tweet popped off a little bit. If you plan to progressively decentralize, don't start as a fake DAO. Start as a normal company or nonprofit and use that structure until you figure out how you want the DAO to work. I think this caught fire on like legal DAO Twitter, a very niche area of Twitter, but it kind of goes right off what Kyler was saying about like everyone, because DAOs are, that hot topic, everyone wants to, DAO find some way, but maybe that's not the best way to start a business or start, your projects with Frisian. Expand a little bit like what you were thinking when you tweeted this, what was your thought process? And then we can get Kyler's thoughts on that as well.
I'm so happy I finally made it on DAO Thought Leader Twitter. Next thing you know, I'm going to be tweeting stuff like, DAOs need more coordination, not more tech. And then everyone's going to like retweet it. No. So like this take really originated from some research I was doing to understand the current state of governance at the largest DAOs. So of the top 10 largest DAOs by treasury size on Ethereum, 6 out of the 10 of them actually use like a trustless form of on-chain governance. And the other 4 literally are just like the actual execution is just a multi-sig of trusted individuals, including one unnamed DAO that has a $1.5 billion treasury that they are managing with a multi-sig of trusted individuals. And that is incredibly hazardous on many levels. First of all, it's just like insecure. The attack vector of like stealing some of those, private keys, for example, is significant. That's how North Korea stole all the funds from the Ronin Bridge, which really led to the whole Tornado Cash situation. It's like a really weird, bad combination of DAOs / blockchain and like the legacy world. So if you have a multi-sig of trusted individuals, you're not taking advantage of the benefits that DAOs offer, that blockchains offer, where it's possible to coordinate without trusting any one person. And yet you don't get any of the benefits of a company where like you have a CEO, board of directors, CFO, et cetera. And there's sort of like all this legal protection for them, but also like ways that, the shareholders are protected from their behavior. Like you don't have any of those protections. So like, let's say you're in the Wonderland DAO, which was managed by a multi-sig, had $1 billion in the treasury. And turns out the multi-sig was one person who was like who's like a convicted felon from a prior crypto scam. This is Sifu, right? Turns out funds weren't Seifu. It's like, it's over. Like if it happens to you, you're done. Like you have no recourse. It's just over, right? And so like, in my opinion, it is incredibly, there's this pattern that's emerged where basically people are like, okay, we're doing this protocol or DeFi project or like investment DAO or whatever as a DAO. So step 1, we're putting all the funds on chain and we're going to secure it with the multi-sig because we don't want to deal with figuring out on-chain governance yet. In my opinion, that is an incredibly irresponsible thing to do. And if you're not ready to like actually launch with trustless on-chain governance, like let's say Nouns did, then you should just be a company and just wait until you're ready to make a DAO that like actually has safe, trustless on-chain governance. This middle step, I think, is extremely unsafe for everyone involved, including the signatories on the multi-sig. And yeah, I think I was at least directionally correct from a legal perspective because like many of crypto Twitter's foremost Twitter lawyers were about this tweet. But now I'm excited for like Kyler to weigh in and tell me where I'm off base.
No, dude, like I don't think you're off base at all, really. You nailed it on the head with the fake DAO thing, right? Like if everything is centered or centralized in a multi-sig or one controlling group of parties, you're not really a DAO at that point, right? A decentralized autonomous organization. If you can't even satisfy the sufficient decentralization of that aspect, then you're not really a DAO. You're just calling yourself a DAO. And a great way to learn about sufficient decentralization, Mark Baran wrote a great paper called The Attorney's Guide to Sufficient Decentralization. And then we at the DAO Research Collective, two of our fellows, Bruno Lelinski and David Kerr, also wrote a great paper on sufficient decentralization. But yeah, I mean, that tweet popped off for a reason, right? Because there are a bunch of organizations out there that are calling themselves DAOs, but they really aren't, right? They're not decentralized. Some of them don't even satisfy the autonomous aspect of a DAO. And many of them are just trying to capture in on the fad, right? That we talked about before. It's just so popular to be a DAO right now. And I think you're absolutely right. If you want to be a DAO, get your idea right, get your company, your project right, get things rolling, and then reverse engineer into a decentralized state. And I think that's the proper way to go about things.
I'm going right off that. If you're watching, you can see this tweet, because people, it did pop off a little bit, but there was definitely some pushback. What would you say for people, either Frisian or Kyler? You can one of you can pick who wants to talk. I'd say Frisian first, but for people who say, hey, that's probably way harder to do, decentralizing from a formalized structure versus starting out as a decentralized organization.
I can start. So I do think with this take, I think there's two caveats. One, it starts with if you're planning to progressively decentralize. Ideally, in my opinion, like if it's possible for you to start as like a truly decentralized, autonomous DAO with trustless governance, like Nouns DAO, for example, from the start, then you should do that. I think there's a lot of benefits to doing it that way, including transparency. It's like more scalable, more possible for like people to help you out and get involved who you're not sort of like centrally coordinating with. I think it's very powerful. So just to be clear, like my favorite structures my favorite DAOs are ones where they sort of like have this level of like trustlessness and decentralization built in from the start. I just don't think that's realistic for, a lot of projects. Like Tally didn't do that, right? Like we're a company. Like I don't think it's realistic for everyone to do. But I think it's cool when you can do it. So secondly, I'm really talking about like projects that have significant treasuries or where they have like a protocol that is a major piece of infrastructure in the crypto world. That's where like there's a lot of risk around this idea of like a multi-sig kind of like centralized DAO structure. There are a lot of DAOs out there that are just like, they're kind of like social DAOs or just like people trying to do stuff together. There's really not like a lot of assets involved. There's not a lot of speculation involved. It's just like people doing stuff together on the blockchain. I also think those DAOs should seriously consider using on-chain governance. I think we're trying to make it easier for them to do that at Tally, and like Open Zeppelin is building a lot of tools to make it easier for them to do that. But like, I'm not like freaking out about those DAOs. Like I contribute to Rehash DAO. They have like a trusted multi-sig setup. Like I want to work with them over time to help, move them to a more decentralized thing. But like, it's not, I don't think anyone in the DAO is like, oh no, the like relatively small amount of funds here that we're just using to like produce a podcast are managed by a multi-sig. Like it's not ideal, but it's like not a big deal. The DAO that manages $1.5 billion on chain with a multi-sig, that is a big deal. So I think there's some nuance as well.
Yeah, I mean, that may be true in some instances, but I think the thing that people need to realize is this isn't some, like cheat code to have a very successful business from the start. Like it's going to be difficult no matter which way you do it. This is a very, very complicated topic. DAOs are not a simple thing. And it's the goal of the DAO Research Collective and Tally and all of these other DAOs to provide tools to make it easier and to improve the user experience. But it can only be mitigated so far, right? This is a complex industry. It's a complex technology. And it's a complex social theory to build out a DAO in a proper way. And so no matter what, there are definitely going to be hurdles that you have to tackle. But I think it's going to continue to be on a subjective basis, a case-by-case basis. If your company, as Frisian was saying, if your company is ready to go in with trustless on-chain governance, then by all means do it. But if you're starting a company and you just want to, capture in the upside of how DAOs are trending right now, but you're not experienced enough or prepared enough to actually execute on-chain governance like that, I wouldn't force it, right? That's a square peg round hole kind of scenario. And you need to realize your fit within the system. And it's not like you're evil or against Web3 if you don't decentralize right away. You can still be a great contributor in the space with a centralized governance structure.
Yeah, I think it comes down, there's something we've talked about pretty much like every episode of DAO Talk. And since I've joined Tally, is like, it comes down to an education issue, within, not even within, just about what DAOs are and what the benefits are. I think Web3 is hot right now, obviously, and everyone's searching for like the next big hot thing to jump on. And I think DAOs are having a moment. Like we've talked about that in past episodes too. Like this is a DAO moment, but I think it's important for people to understand, DAOs aren't necessarily for everyone. And maybe that's sacrilegious to say as someone who like works for a DAO tooling company. But I think if we understand that as, DAO thought leaders and large contributors and researchers, we can better guide how we move this space forward. So moving right along. Frisian, you want to say something? Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. I want DAOs to be for everyone. And I think they will be eventually. Like, I think our goal should be to make it easy and obvious to have like a well-constructed, meaningfully decentralized, leveraging autonomous technology DAO. I just think like today we're in that teenage phase that we were just talking about. So it's like what you don't want to do is like do some major blockchain project, call it a DAO, but do it wrong. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. But I just want to be clear. I do think that DAOs should be for everyone. It's just like we're on the path to getting there instead of at the destination.
Yeah, I agree. I think I was more touching on do you think like eventually everything will be a DAO, or do you think like there's room for everything to kind of coexist in terms of everything like traditional corporations and DAOs as a whole?
I don't know if everything will be a DAO. I just mean like lots of things will be a DAO, and like anyone should be able to make one if they're doing something where it makes sense, right? So I think they will be ubiquitous, but I don't think they'll necessarily like remove the need for corporations or anything like that.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement there. All right. Moving along, staying on the legal side of things. KaliDAO released. Are either one of you familiar with this? Kyle, are you familiar with this?
I'm tangentially familiar with it. I work with Ross and with KaliDAO through Sporos DAO. We're built on top of KaliDAO. We use their operating agreement and Series LLC at Sporos. But from what I understand, this is just like an immense simplification of the process, right? It just makes it so much easier to get a wrapper. You can wrap your own wallet with this if you so please. But I won't try to pretend that I have a deep understanding of it because, Ross is a genius and he comes up with this stuff that very, very few people can understand. So I won't pretend to understand it at that level.
Do you want to explain KaliDAO a little bit? Just like we don't need to go super deep on it, but just, kind of an overview about what it is and why it's so important for the space.
Yeah, KaliDAO they're an amazing, amazing system. They're built like a subsidiary of LexDAO, I believe, which is an aggregation of attorneys in the space and great legal minds. And they've created this new profession called legal engineers, which are you translate computer code or smart contract code into like legal language that can be executable off chain. And so KaliDAO is the extension of LexDAO that offers these cost-effective, lightweight legal wrappers to companies. So you can start an LLC, a Series LLC, using the KaliDAO master contract in a matter of like 10 minutes for under, let's say, $1,000, and kind of offer your DAO the limited liability company protections to members, or if it's member managed or manager managed, you can offer those protections to your company.
Yeah, I think that's epic. And I think, Frisian, that kind of goes with your, belief that, DAOs are for everyone and they should be ubiquitous. And I think something that is starting to, take more of a front seat in the space, unlike crypto Twitter and DAO Twitter, is, the legal implications of starting a DAO. And, there's not a lot of regulation around it right now, but there will be eventually. And I think not preparing for that is not smart. So really like what Kali DAO and Lex DAO are doing. And yeah, Ross is a genius, and he's one of the ones that agreed with that Frisian tweet and kind of push it into the mainstream. But Frisian, you want to say anything on that?
I feel like I need to meet Ross because we just vibe on Twitter all the time. We're always liking each other's tweets. I have no idea like who he actually is or anything, which is true. Many such cases for me on Twitter.
All right, let's get a little bit existential. I really like this tweet from Rather Mercurial. Great Twitter name. It's cool that so many people have different definitions of DAO, but how the hell are newcomers supposed to understand what a DAO is if we can't settle on a comprehensible definition? It's totally fine to create new terms to describe launching orgs or to not be a DAO at all. And this kind of goes back to, what we were discussing earlier, but I think it is, I don't know, like what y'all's thought process on this is. Like, is it important? I know there's some replies that like, okay, like a digital organization is different than, a decentralized autonomous organization, because there are like DAOs that, kind of like operate as a DAO, kind of as like a proxy, but are they actually autonomous? Probably not. But should we call them a DAO or should we call them something else? Like semantically, when like we're very niche DAO nerds, but like on the whole, is it smart to just put everything under the umbrella of DAO, or should we differentiate between each individual one? And is that, kind of fracturing, the mind share of the space as a whole? So Kyler, I want to get your thoughts on this first.
Yeah. So for me, I disagree with this. I don't think that it's cool that we have so many definitions. And I'm saying that in jest for the most part. But so at the 2022 Stanford DAO Workshop, which the DAO Research Collective hosted with the Smart Contract Research Forum and MetaGov, I was one of the moderators at the legal table. This was actually our topic that we tried to tackle. As legal writers, if you're trying to draft memoranda or anything that can organize the thoughts of a DAO, it's tough to do when there's 15 different definitions of a DAO. So we all agreed that we need, to at least attempt to come to a consensus agreement on the terminology of what a DAO is. What is a decentralized organization? What's a decentralized autonomous organization? What are the differences between the two? And everybody and their mother has a different definition for a DAO. I mean, and if you look on Wikipedia, they say, we don't really have a definition for you, like we have a series of definitions, but nobody has a consensus. So the idea that we came up with was to develop a peer review system where we can start getting academic high-level reviews of papers that are written on DAOs. And by seeing which definitions of DAOs align throughout papers and are like repeated. Sorry about the notification thing. I thought I took that off. But if we can start to get a consensus of repeated terminology that can say like, okay, this is where people are agreeing what a DAO is, then we can move forward with more academic and like scientific writings where we're all working on the same page with the same terminology or the same variables in a science experiment. And so that's what my table covered at the event. And we're looking forward to furthering that research.
Yeah, I think we need to stop trying to come up with a new name. Like, for all the reasons Kyler mentioned. Also, like, it's not going to work. Like, just stop. Like, these things never work. Like, DAO is a Schelling point. It's fully utilized. It's over. It's called the DAO. Finally, like we were just talking about, like, it should be decentralized. And there should be some level of autonomy built into it. I think it was weird because like the first DAO, the one that blew up, like the DAO, it was like super autonomous. I don't remember like all the exact details. I wasn't around, but there was like this crazy level of like code where like it was sort of like an investment DAO, but where like the code did the investing kind of like they built this like incredibly high level of autonomy into it that ended up like having a bug in it and was a disaster. But like, it doesn't need to like it doesn't need to like replace humans. Like I think we've all realizing that like humans are very important in DAOs, but like you should be able to like execute decisions in a trustless way where like the blockchain makes it transparent what's about to happen, and then everyone reviews it, and then it executes like and happens without like individual humans having to like custody funds or like be trusted in the supply chain of the execution. Like that should happen. That should be how DAOs works. Like if there's no autonomy at all built into your DAO, like yeah, I don't think it's a DAO. There probably should be some level of autonomy built in it. Otherwise, why are you effing around on the blockchain? Like you just don't need the blockchain then, right? So anyway, yeah, I kind of have a similar view to Kyler here.
Yeah, I think it's a good tweet. Like it's an interesting thought to have, and I think like yeah, at the end of the day, like I don't think it's going to change, and I think we should just, or whoever's doing this should like just hey, focus more on how do we, educate more people around how your DAO should actually function and how it should actually, reflect the name instead of trying to come up with a bunch of different names for, naming different subsets of, fake DAOs. But I think we're good there. Let's move along. We got a couple more things to cover. We got some news out of Nouns DAO. We haven't talked about Nouns in a while, but they are building right along. They announced a new project. I don't know if they announced it, if it's like from the Nouns team themselves, but then again, like everyone kind of is tangentially part of the Nouns team, but they released Nounlets, which is, Frisian, why don't you give us a little bit of a, bird's eye view on this?
Yeah, it's not the Nouns team. That's kind of like why it's so dope. Like that's why DAOs are so cool, right? Like Nouns launched in this very decentralized way, and people have been like building shit to try to like engage with Nouns literally since day one, like since before the first Noun was put on auction. So this is just like one of many things that are being built by teams in the community to try to like make it to just improve like the overall utility of Nouns and Nouns governance. So one of the things that has been really good for Nouns is that there's this like very high barrier to entry of getting a vote. One Noun equals one vote, but only one Noun is auctioned off each week. And the project is incredibly popular, especially with like rich people, like literally. So like, like you basically need to be like just a complete Chad, like, turbo millionaire to like participate. And that's cool because it's like allowed them to create this like really strong selling point and like very like high kind of signal group of contributors and stuff. But the downside is it's like really hard to get involved, right? But to their credit, right, Nouns like has come up with different ways for people to get involved. We've talked about Prop House on this podcast, where you can just apply for funding from Nouns and like build some little Nouns thing, right? You don't have to be a turbo millionaire to like get some funding for Prop House and make something happen. And then this is another way to get involved in Nouns governance without actually buying a Noun yourself. So this is by the team at Tessera. It used to be called Fractional. So this is kind of what they do is they like take NFTs and like split them into like a fungible parts that like represent pieces of that NFT. And so the solution they built here is something that will split a Noun into 100, I think it's 100 parts, right? And so, yeah, 100 parts. And so, and then basically they're calling them Nounlets. So it's like one Noun, there's 100 Nounlets that represent the Noun, and they get 1% of the Noun that's like in the Tessera's vault. And you can then delegate, like each Nounlet has delegation power towards the Noun's governance rights. So it's a way to get involved in Noun's governance by basically buying all the way down to 1% of a Noun, which is pretty cool. So this is one of like many experiments that are going on to try to make Nouns like more accessible. And I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I really like that they keep so like a question I had was like, okay, like, well, what is the artwork going to be? Is it going to be new? They keep the base noun. So like if you're looking, this is, base noun 0, and then you can see like derivatives that come off it. So just little things change, but you can definitely tell one of the 100 nounlets is you can tell which noun it's coming from if you're aware of, the nouns art. Kyler, what are your thoughts on like nouns as a whole? We talk about them a lot, but I'd love to hear like your just opinion from like a legal perspective or just from like a cultural perspective.
Yeah. So from a legal perspective, fractionalized NFTs are really fascinating to me. And it makes me wonder about the securities implications of fractionalizing something into what could potentially be looked at as a security. Are they all pieces of a company that are dependent on someone else's efforts? So from the legal side, it's a fascinating experiment. On the social side, I love it. I support it to the ends of the earth because it does give people that otherwise wouldn't have access to the wealth or the funds that it would need to get equity in a project like this. So opening the door to people that, aren't giga chads, as Frisian brought up, I think it's an amazing way to help get smaller players in the space involved in something that can have a big impact on the space as a whole. So I'm a big supporter of fractionalized NFTs, and I think they have a lot of applications outside of NFTs, even extending to like real estate and stuff. And there's a ton of cool avenues to be explored. And I think we're just at the genesis of this like social experiment of fractionalizing ownership of various property and extending that out to other parties. But again, we need to be careful on the security side. We need to deeply examine that.
For sure. Awesome. All right, let's end on meme of the week. It was tweeted out just before we started recording. It's kind of a meme, but your favorite crypto podcast besides DAO Talk, Up Only, Kobe and Ledger finally met in person. If you have a second, I'm not going to read them on the podcast because they can get a little crazy, but go look at the replies to this this tweet. It's absolutely fucking hilarious. But yeah, Kobe and Ledger met for the first time, and the caption is, "If you're wondering why the markets are nuking so badly, they met." So I don't know if you guys want to say anything about this before we wrap up, but big moment.
I just like, dude, what is the castle? Like, where is that Kobe's house? Like, why are they,
probably.
Why are they in front of the castle? Like, also just like, dude, Ledger cracks me up so much. I love that guy because he's just like such a normal, like responsible, generally intelligent, like middle-aged dad man. And he just like is super prominent in crypto, which it's just like really, I don't know. He's just like the perfect kind of like everyman crypto person. And it's just really funny, dude. I love it. I love Up Only. And it's really funny. There's like several really large podcasts where the hosts didn't meet for a long time. Like David and Ryan from Bankless, like they've been doing it for a couple of years, and they only met at the like Miami conference that they did like earlier, like over the summer. So it's pretty funny how that happens. Yeah, I'm excited for them. It looks like they're going to get married in this picture. They're going to merge as well. It's like,
yeah, Kobe's like looking
in this arc.
Yeah, he's looking very lovingly at him. It's a very interesting photo. But Kyler, you want to say something?
My only thoughts are just a sincere congratulations to the happy couple.
I love it. Well, on some Content Guild news, now that you're going to wrap this up, as we are all part of Content Guild, today is if you're listening to this, it's already happened, but our first community call. So we've been doing calls internally with the Content Guild team, and we've been releasing the notes after the fact. But today we're doing our first community call, which will be in the Content Guild Discord, which is gated to contributors who have produced for Content Guild. And if you want to learn more about how to contribute and how to get in, all contributors receive a free Contributors Pass NFT, which is how you get into the Discord and how you contribute and propose things on Tally. You can learn more at contentguild.xyz. That should be out by the time this podcast is out. And we look forward to seeing everyone in that community call this week and in the future. But yeah, this has been a great episode, Kyler. Thanks for joining us. And any closing thoughts?
Thanks for having me on, guys. It's my pleasure. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the DAO Research Collective, we're focused on accelerating the functionality and utility of DAOs for the entire community. come check us out at DAOcollective.xyz.
Yeah, we'll link Kyler's Twitter and also DAO Research Collective's Twitter as well. If you've been a long time listener, you've heard us talk about them, but we love what they're doing, what you guys are doing, and I'm sure we'll highlight you some more as time goes on. But thanks again for coming on. Frisian, you got any closing thoughts post-merge?
Dude, I'm so happy the merge happened. Unreal execution. Like, as someone who's been part of a few like major software projects, like the fact that they just hot swap that shit and like zero downtime, fucking insane, bro. Insane. I was emotional last night. Like, it was so dope. Kyler, thanks for coming on, raising the average IQ of DAO Talk. We'll have to find some more smart people to come in here, get in the mix, and yeah, looking forward to keep doing it.
All right, we'll see you next week. It's been episode 17. Peace.